Hi there, Ron from RJM Music again. In this week's Mastering the Mastermind, we're going to talk about fixed preset buttons. In a much earlier episode, we talked about preset buttons and how they work, especially with regard to the bank buttons. And that's a really important thing to review if you haven't looked at it recently or haven't looked at it at all. But a quick overview, I guess, on all the masterminds, and I should mention that this applies to all the masterminds, GTs, PBCs, LTs, but I'm showing the GT here. So on all these masterminds, there are some number of preset buttons, somewhere between 4 and 6 on them by default, and a couple bank buttons, and they work like MIDI controllers have worked for the past 30 years, where you start out on the first bank of presets, which, if you have 6 buttons, there are presets 1 through 6. If you were to press bank up, these buttons would now access presets 7 through 11. And, each press advances you one bank or one set of preset buttons to the next group of buttons or next bank. And so that's how you get at all your presets in your system with a limited number of preset buttons. And so that's good. And there's also song and set list mode, which works similarly, but you have a little more control over which presets are in which banks. Now, one thing I hear from customers fairly often is basically asking, well, I want, button page 1 to have, these presets on it, and I want button page 2 to have these different presets on it. And so basically what they want to do is they want to move outside of the bank type arrangement, and they just want to have certain presets on certain pages. And the mastermind wasn't originally designed to do that, but certainly there's a way to do it. And so that's what I'm showing you today, is how to set up just specific presets on specific pages. So it's actually not all that difficult, but we'll get into the details here. We'll just start taking over some of these buttons here, or what? We'll go further. We'll get rid of the banks and the presets entirely, just so we can hopefully avoid some confusion. So what we're going to do is we're just going to disable these bank buttons entirely. You can set these to anything we want. I just want them off the screen so they're not providing any confusion here. So let's replace these, and let's say on page 1 we want to have a certain number of presets. So we'll edit these buttons. And the first and most important thing is that you want these to be IA buttons and no longer preset buttons. Preset buttons are predefined to work in that way I just described, with being affected by bank buttons and all that. And so we need an IA button to achieve what we want. I see global is turned on here. We do not want global turned on. Global means that this button would appear on every page, and we definitely want different buttons on different pages. So global is off, and we're going to turn off send on preset change and update on preset change, because we don't want them to trigger if we change presets in some other manner. We want them to only do something when we actually press them. And the other important thing is we need a group. I discussed this in an earlier video, but in short, a group of buttons, they all have the same group number, and when you have buttons grouped, when you press one button in the group, all the other ones in the group turn off. So if we've got buttons that select presets, of course the GT can only be on one preset at a time. So you don't want to have the preset 1 and the preset 5 button turned on at the same time, for example. It wouldn't make any sense. So grouping enforces that, where only one button that has group 1 will be allowed to be on at any time. Okay, so what we can do here is we can just simply call this preset 1, and what we do here is change our type to system and preset. And we'll leave it at preset 1. So this button is now a fixed button that only accesses preset 1. Okay, well, what's the difference between this and that? It basically, if we still had our bank buttons, when we press bank up and bank down, the remaining green buttons would change, but this one would still remain as a preset 1 button. So what we can do here is copy. I right-clicked that to get the menu, copy, and we can paste that into all these locations, getting rid of our normal preset buttons and turning them into these special fixed preset buttons. And so now I can go and call it preset 2. And everything else stays the same, group number stays the same. And we can simply do the same for all of them. Okay, so now we haven't achieved much in the sense that, these buttons now do what the other ones did, presets 1 through 6. But again, even if we had the blank buttons, they wouldn't change. So now where it gets useful is we switch over to page 2 here, and we can start pasting the same buttons again, like so. And we continue, and by no means do these need to be in actual order at all. I'm just doing it that way because it probably makes sense. But if you have a reason to change it otherwise, you can certainly do that, and doesn't matter. And also in previous videos I showed that the preset buttons kind of fill up with presets in some specified order, so that basically, if you had a bunch of preset buttons here, the most upper left one would get preset 1, and then the next one it finds would get preset 2, etc. And they would kind of have this sort of fixed order based on their position on the page. These buttons have no such thing. Let me continue numbering these before I forget, and then I'll show you how that works. And one more. Okay, so now page 1 has presets 1 through 6. Page 2 now has presets 7 through 12. And these are, truly fixed preset buttons. They do one thing and they recall one preset, and that is, simply it. So now with these fixed preset buttons, they always recall the same preset number no matter what. And so we can do things like we can start pulling these and moving them around, and it doesn't matter where they are on the controller. They just, this button is going to recall preset 10 no matter where it is, and there's no, there's no other relationship at all. And we can put these on different pages and whatever. So if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, just a button that simply recalls one preset and nothing else, no other considerations, then this is definitely what you want to do. And, that's as simple as it is. So just a simple topic for this week. As always, like and subscribe, and please send us your suggestions for future topics. Thanks as always, and see you next time.